Shabbat Shalom, also from my side, from my part. The weekly portion is called Lecha. And it reminded me in the first moment of Abraham's calling. And the weekly portion of Abraham is called Lecha. Where God tells Abraham, go out from your family into the land which I will show you. Here in this portion today, God is speaking to Moses, sending out the spies, sending them into the land which he, God, had promised them. In order for them to see how the land is. And in verse 18, I read this passage again, what they should see. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many. How is the land in which they live? Is it good or bad? And how are the cities in which they live? Are they like open camps or with fortifications? How is the land? Is it fat or lean? Are there trees in it or not? Make an effort then to get some of the fruit of the land. So I read to the first part of verse 20. This means God wanted to show them that He will keep His promises. He wanted for them to see that the land is very, very good, as Caleb later states. And the spies, they report how good the land is, and they bring back grapes and fruit of the land. But what is it that happens then? In verse 27, I continue to read. Thus they told him and said, we went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. First, they see how good the land is, and then get into doubts, because the people that they see living in the land is too strong. And because the cities are fortified and they are very large. And here we have to be careful to see what's happening in this situation or in this passage for us, in order for us to learn exactly from that. They see how good the land is, but as well that it is not an easy task to take the land into possession. And exactly in that moment, it is one of the spies who raises his voice, and he's calming down the people that murmured against Moses, and he said, let us go up into the land, because we will surely be able to take it, for we will surely overcome it. In verse 30 is what he read. Some would call this or him to be optimistic, but I would say that he had trust, or he trusted God, and he understood that God is faithful. Why? Because previously God promised a wonderful land, and Caleb had seen with his own eyes how wonderful this land is. So how does it continue with verse 31? But the men who had gone up with him, the other spies, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us. So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone, in spying it out, is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. There also we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, and we became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Verses 31 to 33 we read.
Поедающая живущих на ней, и весь народ, который видели вы среди ее, люди великорослые. Там увидели мы и исполинов, сынов Янаковых, от исполинского рода, и мы видели в глазах наших пред ними, как саранча, такими же были мы и в глазах их.
This means they say, we cannot do it. There are the giants, and this people is stronger than we are. They even say, we are like grasshoppers, like very small animals. And then what is spreading is a rumor, and all the nation is getting afraid, and they even say, would it be that we had died in the wilderness? This means the spies who doubted and reported to the people, it spread among the nation, and the people believed it, and they were afraid. And now I would like to show in a spiritual view, so that we might understand what happened here. The spies, they saw the problems they had to face, or that were lying ahead of them. This is not bad. This is not bad in itself. What was bad is that they had forgotten God's promises, and that He is faithful, and that He can be trusted. When He says He's going to bring them into the land, it is Him who is making this promise. But when we begin to doubt about His promises, then we see what is going to happen. We will get afraid. we will be afraid of the problems that are ahead of us in life. And fear works the following, that it is our perceptions are distorted. All of a sudden we see the problem much bigger than it is in reality. They have seen giants and they themselves were like grasshoppers. This is the distortion that happens because they did not trust in the Lord our God. And I would like to read another passage in the book of 2 Kings. The king of Aram, he was very afraid or fearful. It is in 2 Kings chapter 6. The king of Aram, he was kind of afraid, fearful, because the prophet Elisha continuously had made his plans of warring against Israel, making them null and void. And therefore he sent a whole army to get and fetch Elisha. And in verse 14 of chapter 6 of 2 Kings, it says, he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. Now when the attendant of the man of God had risen early and gone out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was circling the city. And his servant said to him, Alas, my master, what shall we do? So he answered, Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha.
И пришли ночью и окружили город. Поутру служитель человека Божия встал и вышел, и вот войско вокруг города, и кони, и колесницы, и сказал ему слуга его, увы, господин мой, что нам делать? И сказал он, не бойся, потому что тех, которые с нами, больше, нежели тех, которые с ними. И молился Елисей, и говорил Господи, открой ему глаза, чтобы он увидел. И открыл Господь глаза слуге, и он увидел, и вот вся гора наполнена конями и колесницами огненными кругом Елисея.
This means the servant could only see the problems that was ahead. Elisha saw who was on his side or at his side. And this is exactly the question. How shall we apply these verses, these Bible verses, in our lives? First, we know that we can trust in our Lord. He is faithful even today. And when we then have a problem that makes us afraid or which is threatening us, then do not let us wait until doubt is growing and fear is creeping in or increasing, but let us seek the presence of the Lord, to seek the presence of our Holy God, because He sees our lives from His perspective. True peace, true shalom is coming from Him. Amen.